Do you smell it? The copper sting in the air. The metallic rot clinging to the back of your throat. It is not blood, though you will want to believe it is. No. This scent is older, crueler. It smells of balance scorched into flesh. A harmony carved with a cleaver's edge. That was the first thing I noticed the moment he arrived. The battlefield was already ruined. Ash clouds hung thick above the trenches, the sky a fractured bruise of violet lightning and green fire. We had fought orcs for weeks, maybe months, maybe years, I no longer know, and the ground was already layered in corpses like sediment. But when he came, everything stopped. Even the Wyack's engines of slaughter fell silent, as if a hand had pressed pause on reality. The silence. That's what broke me. Not his face, not his height, not the impossible aura of inevitability that poured off him like radiation. It was the silence. Imagine it. Tens of thousands of orcs, all howling, all stomping, all hacking at us with crude cleavers, and in the span of a breath, nothing. No sound. The universe gagged itself. And in that silence, I heard the crunch of gravel beneath his boots. One step, then another. I tell myself now that I should have prayed to the Emperor. That's what any guardsman is taught. When faced with terror, shout the creed, raise the lost gun, die screaming his name. But when I saw him, prayer abandoned me. Faith abandoned me. Even my own body betrayed me, because every cell bowed in recognition. I did not choose to kneel. My bones chose for me. His armor was not of this galaxy. Its lines were too smooth, its sheen too absolute. Not like ceramite. Not like anything I had seen among the Astartes. And on his gauntlet, O God Emperor, that gauntlet, the stones gleamed like wounds in reality, each one pulsing with an alien heartbeat. And his eyes were the worst of it. Not cruel, not savage, but patient. Patient, as though he had waited all eternity to arrive here. Patient, as though he had seen me before I was born, before Terra was forged, before the Emperor had walked among us. His gaze was not the gaze of a god. It was worse. It was the gaze of inevitability. He looked at me, and I understood. Nothing I had ever done mattered. Nothing I would ever do could matter. I was already a statistic, a minor variable, in his calculus of existence. Then he spoke. And his voice, oh, I can still hear it. Even now, it wasn't sound. It was pressure, like the deep sea crushing my skull. His words entered me through the marrow. This universe is diseased. I will cure it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand in fire until my last gun's barrel melted. But I only shook. The silence around us cracked. And from the warp, something screamed back. The warp knew him. And it hated him. Daily life and the horror, I do not remember sleep anymore. If I close my eyes, I do not dream. I fall into equations. Numbers without end. Perfect sequences, repeating in impossible patterns, crushing me beneath their weight. I think they are his thoughts, leaking into mine. I think I am only permitted to dream of what he allows. And when I wake, it is always the same. The trenches. The stink of burnt promethium. The corpses stacked like sandbags. My fellow guardsmen whispering the creed with trembling lips, as if the words themselves might form a shield. But none of us believe anymore. Not after what we saw. Not after what he did. At dawn, though dawn is a useless word, since the skies here have been blackened by warp fire for years, we rise. We clean our lost guns, though the act feels hollow. We eat our ration bars, though the taste is chalky ash. And we march into positions that no longer matter. Because every day he appears. Not with fanfare. Not with thunder. Not like the demons that scream through the veil or the orcs that charge in endless waves. No. He arrives with inevitability. One step, then another. His shadow stretching impossibly long over the earth, blotting out what little light remains. And when he comes, the world obeys. I have seen orcs freeze mid-swing, crude cleavers trembling inches from my face, their green jaws locked in silence, as though the air itself congealed in their throats. I have seen chaos cultists fall to their knees, gibbering praise to their dark gods, only for their gods to go silent, abandoning them to his presence. The only things that do not still are the dead. And there are so many dead. He walks among them like a priest in a graveyard. His gauntlet glows faintly, each stone pulsing in rhythm with his steps. And when he gestures, always slowly, always with terrible calm, the corpses move. Not reanimated like the Hairtex machines, not puppet by strings of the warp. No, they disappear, reduced to fine dust in an instant. Flesh, bone, armor, everything, gone, as though it had never existed. Balance restored. Do you know what it feels like to stand among thousands of corpses, knowing your own comrades lie rotting beside you, and then watch half of them vanish in silence? To look down at the spot where your sergeant's skull once rested, only to see a patch of bare dirt? It is like being erased from memory, like watching the proof of your suffering dissolve before your eyes. At first, some of us thought this was mercy. No corpses to rot, no stench, no flies. But then he began to choose. Not only the dead, the living. A guardsman beside me once fell to his knees, clutching his rosary beads, shouting praise to the Emperor. He begged Thanos to leave him be, to strike instead the orcs that swarmed the next ridge. And Thanos listened. Patiently. He tilted his head, as though weighing the man's plea against the scale of the universe. Then, without malice, without even cruelty, he raised the gauntlet and snapped. Just one man. Gone. The sound was not loud, not theatrical, just a soft crack of fingers. But the silence afterward was suffocating. Every guardsman in the trench knew, then, we were not fighting for survival anymore. We were statistics waiting to be balanced. Do you understand the ritual of fear now? Each day, we rise. Each day, he arrives. Each day, he selects. Sometimes it is the dead. Sometimes the living. Sometimes both. He is not consistent, and that is the worst part. If he only targeted corpses, we could tell ourselves we were safe. If he only culled the living, we could pray to be overlooked. But his hand moves like a pendulum, and all we can do is wait for its arc to cut through us. And still the wars continue. The orcs rage, though muted. The traitor marines descend in drop pods, their war cries choked off mid-echo. Tyrannid spores rain from the sky, their shrieks dissolving into silence as soon as he sets foot upon the field. But no matter who fights, no matter who dies, no matter which gods scream from the warp, he is always there. Watching, measuring, selecting. And we, poor remnants of the Calabar 81st, we have adapted. Yes, even in horror, life finds its rituals. We keep journals, though most of us cannot bear to write our names anymore. We scratch tally marks into the trench walls, counting the days since the last selection. We whisper theories in the long nights. Perhaps he is drawn to faith, perhaps to doubt, perhaps to guilt. Perhaps he can smell sin. Once, I thought he could smell fear. That theory lasted until Private Renshaw, who had long ago ceased to feel anything, was taken. He laughed when Thanos appeared. He spat at the ground, muttered that he welcomed death, that nothing could scare him anymore. And still, he vanished. No theory holds. No pattern comforts. Every night, when I press my back against the dirt wall of the trench, I hear whispers that are not my own thoughts. Not his voice either. Something else. Something watching him, as we do. Something that rides in the warp, furious and afraid. Chaos. They know him. They cannot touch him. That terrifies me most of all. Because if even the ruinous powers cannot defy him, what hope is left for men like me? I clean my lost gun. I chew my ration. I whisper prayers I no longer believe. And every morning, when the silence falls, I look up and see him coming. Step, step, step. Each sound echoes like the toll of a funeral bell. Each sound is the measure of inevitability. And still I endure. For now. Escalation, the first sign that the rules had changed, was the silence breaking. For weeks, months, he had walked among us in perfect stillness, a void that muted every sound. But then came a day when the orcs screamed again. Not with their usual bloodthirst, not the roaring whack that made our spines rattle. No, this was different. It was higher, shriller, a sound of fear. That was the first time I saw an orc run away. Do you understand how unnatural that is? Orcs do not retreat. Orcs fight until their heads are pulped or their blood runs dry. But that day, when Thanos lifted his gauntlet and the stones glowed, The entire horde broke. Thousands of them, scrambling over one another, trampling the weak beneath their boots, abandoning war without shame. We thought this was a miracle. We thought perhaps the Emperor had guided this Titan to us as a weapon, a protector. Even the Commissar whispered that maybe, just maybe, our suffering had found purpose. But miracles wrought quickly in this galaxy. For the orcs did not simply flee. They vanished. Entire warbands, entire tribes, entire battle fleets, gone. A sector report later claimed the greenskin presence had dropped by half overnight. It was not victory. It was subtraction. Erasure. Balance. And it was not just orcs. Chaos forces, too, began to falter. I witnessed a full company of word-bearers drop-potting into the wastes, chanting hymns to their dark gods. The sky boiled with warp fire as they descended, their voices shaking reality itself. But when they struck the ground, their gods abandoned them. No whispers. No blessings. Their demonic allies did not arrive. They charged nonetheless, bolters spitting, blades screaming. They faced him without fear, at least, not the fear of men. But when he raised the gauntlet, when the purple stone pulsed, their weapons rusted in their hands. Their ceramite cracked like old bone. Their war cries died in their throats, leaving only the sound of their boots scuffing against the dirt. Then they, too, were gone. The warp screamed louder that night. I felt it through the trench walls, the very air vibrating with hatred. Demons howled in voices I could not understand, clawing against the veil. I heard one name whispered over and over, in tones of fury and dread. Titan. 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 But the most terrible part was what came next. Because it was not only the Xenos and the heretics who vanished. It was us. The first time, I told myself it was a mistake. That maybe the soldier had stepped wrong, triggered some hidden mine, fallen into some abyss. But then it happened again. And again. The pattern grew clearer each day. Thanos was no longer merely pruning corpses. He was no longer content with balancing the dead. He was balancing the living. Entire platoons blinked out of existence. Vox signals died mid-sentence, leaving only static. Regiments listed in the Munitorum's ledgers simply ceased to exist, names and numbers dissolving into nothingness. Even the Inquisition noticed, though they whispered only in the shadows. I overheard one acolyte muttering that their records had been tampered with, altered by no human hand. We were being erased not only from reality, but from history. Do you understand what that means? It means I might already be gone. That even as I whisper this to you, even as you hear my words, the record of me has already been balanced away. I am speaking to you from the edge of erasure. But it was not only subtraction. He began to shape. The first time I saw him build, I thought my mind was broken. He crouched by a shattered Lehman Russ tank, its hull torn open by orc artillery. His massive fingers brushed the ruin. The Yellowstone glowed. And the tank reversed. Not repaired. Reversed. The twisted metal unbent. The scorch marks vanished. The broken tread spun backward into wholeness. Even the dead crew inside gasped, alive once more, though they screamed in confusion, for they remembered dying. That broke something in me, because it meant he was not only a destroyer. He was a god of editing. He could cut, erase, restore. Time bent to his whim. And in a galaxy where even the Emperor struggles against entropy, here was a being who could say no to decay. But do you think this gave hope? No. It bred only deeper despair. Because if he could restore, then why did he not restore us all? Why only fragments? Why only machines? Why only when it suited his strange sense of equilibrium? Why did he not undo the horror of Calabar's burning? Why not restore the countless billions who had died screaming in the wars of the Imperium? Why not? Why not give us back Terra, give us back faith, give us back a future? The answer came, though not in words. In looks. In his patient, inevitable gaze. He did not save because salvation was not balance. And balance was all that mattered. The escalation reached its peak when the Grey Knights arrived. Yes, the Emperor's chosen, the demon hunters, the secret hammer of Titan itself. Clad in silver, warded in wards, they came with bolters blazing and psychic might flaring. For a moment, when their strike cruiser descended, our broken regiment dared to feel hope. The knights moved with purpose, their halberds crackling, their chants burning the air. They confronted him directly, their Justicar shouting the Emperor's name as he swung. And Thanos caught the blade with his bare hand. Do you understand? A weapon sanctified against demons, wielded by the most disciplined psychers in the Imperium, and he stopped it with his palm. Metal groaned. Sparks spat. But the blade did not move. Then he spoke. You fight shadows. You worship imbalance. Your god is dying, and you cannot accept it. I will finish what he began. The Grey Knights answered with fury. Psychic fire erupted. Warp lightning split the sky. For a heartbeat, reality itself seemed to bend under the clash of will. I felt my skull split with the force of their battle, my vision swimming with impossible colors. But the stones glowed. One after another. Time. Space. Mind. Reality. Power. Soul. And in that terrible radiance, the Grey Knights screamed. Not in pain. In confusion. Their armor dissolved from their bodies, their flesh unspooled like threads, their very names unwritten. I saw them reaching for the Emperor in their final moment, mouths forming words that would never be remembered. And then they were gone. The warp howled that night like never before. A tide of demons poured against the veil, shrieking, clawing, desperate to stop him. Even the great powers, it seemed, feared the balancing hand. But Thanos only stood in silence, gauntlet raised, watching them thrash in their prison. And for the first time, I wondered if even chaos itself could die. Reflection and temptation, I do not know how long it has been. Days bleed into nights. Nights bleed into screams. Screams bleed into silence. Time is no longer linear. It coils around me, loops back on itself. Sometimes I remember things that haven't happened yet. Sometimes I forget things I know are true. Sometimes I wake in a trench that should have been dust centuries ago. I think he is doing this to me. I think he is editing me. I have begun to forget the names of my squad mates. Their faces blur. Their laughter feels like something I read once, not something I lived. But I remember him. Always him. Every word. Every step. Every patient, inevitable glance. And when I try to pray, I hear his voice instead. You cling to suffering because it is familiar. You glorify endless war because it spares you from choice. But there is a choice. I used to believe that voice was madness, my own mind fracturing beneath the pressure of what I had seen. But now I am not so sure. Because each time I hear it, the world seems to tilt closer to reason. Look around you, it whispers. The Imperium, a bloated corpse, rotting from within. Trillions dying every day to maintain a war that cannot be won. A god who sits immobile upon a throne of decay, demanding sacrifice without end. The warp, a wound that festers forever, feeding on despair and hatred, birthing monstrosities from our worst impulses. A sea that cannot be tamed, only endured. Chaos, blind hunger dressed as freedom. Tyranids, devouring for the sake of devouring. Orcs, waging war without reason. Eldar, clinging to ghosts of a dead past. Necrons, seeking silence because they cannot bear the noise of life. And in the midst of it all, humanity screaming for meaning it will never find. This universe is diseased, he said when he first arrived. I will cure it. What if he is right? The thought makes me sick. It crawls under my skin, itches in my marrow. But it will not leave. I cannot deny what I have seen. The wars stop when he arrives. The gods recoil. The enemies vanish. The galaxy quiets. And in that quiet, for the first time, I feel something I have not felt since I was a child on a Hive World street, before the tithe officers came, before the Schola Progenium took me, before the lost gun was placed in my hands. I feel peace. It terrifies me. Because peace was never meant for us. Peace is heresy. Peace is stagnation. Peace is death. That is what the commissars teach us. That is what the sermons say. Humanity's purpose is war, forever war, eternal war. But if that is true, why does it feel so good to stop fighting? There are days now when I do not fire my weapon. Days when I watch the orcs flee and feel nothing. Days when I see the chaos banners burn and do not whisper the Emperor's name. And on those days, I swear I see him watching me. Not judging. Not commanding. Just watching. As though waiting for me to understand. And then the dreams come. In them, I stand on a world without war. No banners. No armies. No gods. The stars burn in silence, untouched by greed or hatred. Children laugh without fear. Factories hum without screams. Planets spin without the weight of tithe ships above them. And there he stands, at the heart of it all, his hand resting on the gauntlet. No throne. No temple. No worshippers. Only balance. This is what it could be, the dream voice whispers. This is what you fight against. But the warp is not so easily silenced. There are nights when I wake sweating, trembling, my ears full of whispers. They are not his. They are older. Darker. They slither into my skull like serpents, filling me with rage and hunger and despair. Do not believe him, they hiss. He is a liar. He is a thief. He would rob you of your purpose. We give you freedom. Freedom. The word tastes foul now. What freedom is there in chaos? What choice is there in an existence defined by hunger and slaughter? I have seen what chaos offers. Demons with mouths for faces and endless thirst in their eyes. They call that freedom. But I have also seen what the Imperium offers. Obedience until death, sacrifice until nothing remains, worship of a corpse that will never speak again. I am tired of both. There is a night I remember, or perhaps I dreamed it, when he came to me. Not on a battlefield. Not amidst the ruin. He came to me in the quiet of the trench. No soldiers. No screams. Just him and me and the stars above. He sat beside me. The ground shook slightly beneath his weight. He did not speak for a long time. And when he finally did, his words were soft. I was not born to destroy, he said. I was born to balance. To end the cycle. I asked him what he meant. My voice sounded small, like a child's. This galaxy worships struggle, he replied. But struggle is not a virtue. It is a trap. Every empire, every god, every species, all caught in the same spiral. Growth. War. Decay. Growth. War. Decay. Endlessly. I have seen it on countless worlds, countless universes. Always the same story. Always the same ending. He turned his gaze to the stars. I will write a new ending. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. That war is purpose. That struggle is meaning. That without conflict, there is no humanity. But the words caught in my throat. Because deep down, I knew he was right. We are addicted to suffering. We cling to it because it gives us identity. What are we without war? What is the Imperium without its enemies? What is chaos without its prey? And what am I without the trench, without the lost gun, without the endless orders to die for men who will never know my name? I do not know if I am writing this to confess or to absolve myself. Perhaps both. I only know that the line between horror and salvation has blurred. There are days now when I hope he will choose me, that the snap will come and I will simply cease. No suffering, no fear, no endless cycle, just peace. And then there are days when I want to kneel, not out of fear, not out of despair, but because I believe, because I want to believe. The Emperor is silent. Chaos is mad. But he, Thanos, speaks. And his words do not promise glory or pleasure or vengeance. They promise an end. And perhaps, after 40,000 years of unending war, that is the most merciful promise of all. But mercy is dangerous. Mercy is seductive. Mercy is the first step toward surrender. I tell myself I will resist, that I will fight, that I will not be swayed. But each time he walks among us, each time the stones glow and reality bends, I feel a little more of myself unravel. Perhaps this is how it happens. Not with a battle cry, not with a bolt round, but with a whisper that makes too much sense. Closing the end began with the sky tearing open. I had thought I had seen the warp before, the flickers of unreality when demons clawed through, the burning auroras of sorcery, but this was different. This was not a portal. This was not a breach. This was the universe itself splitting. A wound of light yawned across the heavens, stretching from horizon to horizon. Not light like the sun, not light like a star. This was the light of a soul being gutted. Purple, green, black, all colors and no color. It poured over the battlefield like a storm, and every living thing screamed. The demons came first. Not creeping, not summoned. They spilled out in a torrent, a tide of fangs and wings and eyes, shrieking with fury and hunger. Bloodletters, keepers, nurglings vomiting pestilence, screamers weaving through the air like knives, every form of madness unchained at once. And behind them, their masters. I cannot describe what it is to feel the four at once. Khorne's rage gnawed my bones. Nurgle's rot curdled my lungs. Slaanish's hunger licked at my nerves. Tzeentch's schemes spiderwebbed my skull until thought itself became treason. It was not an army. It was the concept of chaos made flesh. And it had come not for us, not for the Imperium, but for him. Thanos did not move. He stood alone in the center of the field, gauntlet raised, eyes steady. He looked like a statue carved into inevitability. Around him, reality shook itself apart, but he was unmoved. The demons charged. I saw a great unclean one crush the earth beneath its bulk, rivers of pus gushing from its wounds. It swung its rusted cleaver at him with the strength of a collapsing star. And he caught the blade. With one hand. The stones flared. Yellow for power. Red for reality. Time itself stuttered. The unclean one froze, its body unraveling into rot, its grin collapsing into silence. Then it was gone. Not slain. Not banished. Simply subtracted. The rest faltered. Demons do not falter. But they did then. Khorne bellowed in fury. Slaanish shrieked. Tzeentch whispered 1,000 curses. Nurgle only laughed, his gurgling joy spraying filth across the void. The gods themselves pressed closer to the veil, their forms bulging against the wound in the sky. You do not belong. They roared together, their voices merging into one. This is our galaxy. Our war. You cannot end what has no end. And Thanos spoke. His voice was quiet, but it shook the marrow of reality. Then I will end you. He raised the gauntlet. All 6 stones burned at once, a crown of impossible light. The air collapsed inward. The warp shuddered. The 4 screamed, not in rage now, but in fear. I do not know if gods can die. But I saw something that day I cannot forget. Chaos bleeding. Their forms recoiled, their screams fractured, their demons dissolved into ash. The wound in the sky shrank, shivered, howled. The warp, the eternal sea, the unkillable wound, reeled back. And then silence. Not the silence of stillness. Not the silence of death. The silence of erasure. The warp was gone. I do not mean banished. I mean gone. No whispers. No demons. No gods. The immaterium itself blinked out like a candle in a storm. For the first time in 40,000 years, there was only reality. Do you understand what that means? No more psychers. No more sorcery. No more emperor. Yes. Even him. Even Terra's throne. The Astronomicon winked out. The golden corpse fell truly silent. The emperor's dream dissolved like smoke. And in that silence, I heard only one voice. His. It is done. I fell to my knees. My body shook, but not from fear anymore. From relief. From release. My head felt light, my lungs clear. For the first time in my life, I was free of the whispers. Free of the rotting hymnals of Nurgle, free of the endless drum of Khorne, free of the Emperor's choking silence. I was alone. Alone with myself. Alone with choice. And yet, I was not free. Not truly. Because he still stood there, patient, inevitable, unchallenged. The gauntlet pulsed, and I knew. My freedom existed only because he allowed it. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to raise my lost gun, to spit in his face, to scream the Emperor's name. But the words would not come. Because I did not hate him. I believed him. Yes. There. I have said it. I believe. The Imperium lied. Chaos lied. The Emperor lied. But he, Thanos, spoke only truth. Balance. An end to the cycle. Do you not crave it, too? Be honest. As you listen to my words, as you feel them crawl under your skin, do you not crave silence? Do you not crave an end? That is his gift. That is his curse. He shows us the ending we are too afraid to admit we want. The last thing I remember before the erasure was his eyes. They met mine, and I swear he smiled. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, but with a strange, terrible kindness. You understand, he said. You are ready. Then his fingers rose. The snap came. Not loud. Not thunderous. Just a soft crack, like a candle wick breaking. And everything went black. So how am I speaking to you now? That is the question, isn't it? I should be dust. I should be gone. But perhaps this is what it means to be balanced, to be unmade, yet preserved in confession. To exist only as a whisper in the dark. Maybe I am already erased, and these words are nothing but echoes. Maybe you are not hearing me at all. Maybe you are only hearing yourself. After all, balance demands symmetry. And if I was chosen to vanish, then you must be next. When the snap comes for you, it will sound just like your own heartbeat stopping.